if you didn't watch any of these races and know where Brad has been running, I mean, frick, at Daytona, he was one of the fastest cars, right, in stage 2 or stage 1, and got stage points, finished second, and same thing at Atlanta. He's driving forward, and then the same thing at Phoenix. He was fast. They just hadn't used the reds yet, and just sometimes there's things that are out of your control, and it just puts you in a hole. Like those guys. You take away, I was running, I think, 10th or whatever it was when I got wrecked at Daytona. And at COTA, we had something go amiss with the fuel situation to where I had to pit, where we were going to end up probably around 14th or whatever. And even before that caution come out, we were going to end up 11th. And all three of us should be up there in points. It's just, I think, I'm going to speak for Brad and I. I'm looking forward to Vegas. I'm looking forward to Homestead, Martinsville, Bristol, and so on to really build these points back up. And hopefully when we go to Talladega, the three of us can work really hard together to get, a lot of stage points and stay out of the chaos at the end and continue to build on that.
I can add to the situation with Brad Keselowski. I was with him most of the weekend in Phoenix. I was with him when the race ultimately ended for him. He had been sitting in the car, window net up. Team was working on the car, trying to make repairs. They had worked on it for quite a while before they decided that it just wasn't going to happen that day. Brad climbed out of the car, and before anybody could scurry away, go back to the transporter or anything like that, he made sure he got all of their attention. He called all of the road crew and the over-the-wall guys into a huddle, like a football huddle, if you will, in the garage around the car, and he gave them a motivational pep talk, if you will. He was showing his leadership skills. He wanted to make sure that they understood that he truly believes that better days are ahead, and he didn't want anybody to hang their heads. So to me, I was impressed by that, and it showed me that the mantra that he unveiled a couple of years ago, that the 6 never quits. I think he was trying to reinstill that and making sure they understood that there's a long season ahead, lots of racing still to go, and what's happened so far in the season is behind them, and that they need to look to the next race, Las Vegas, where Brad historically has been very good. So reason to be hopeful for the 6 team, and certainly Brad is not hanging his head yet.
Welcome to Backstretch Banter here on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, where every week we take a look at RFK Racing and what they have going on in the NASCAR Cup Series. My name's Brad Gilley, sitting in this week for Chris Childers. We have Mike Massaro with us and the driver of the number 60. This weekend, it will be the Consumer Cellular Ford Mustang Dark Horse, Ryan Preece. Gentlemen, how is everyone today?
I'm doing good. I've been searching high and low for Brad's flip phone around here at RFK. Haven't quite found it yet, but you got a few more days before we head to Vegas, so I'm looking forward to bringing that with me.
The beauty of the flip phone for me is that I can remember using one, right? So I go back. You probably don't.
Oh, I do.
You do? Okay.
I'm old enough. I'm one of the older drivers right now, so yeah.
All right. Well, they're cool. And, retro's in, so we're hoping folks out there take advantage. They're going to be collector's items. They're only making 1,000 of them, I'm told.
And did you know that you can get 2 lines for $60?
I didn't know that.
Now
Anyways, hey, we've got lots to talk about, Brad, right? Not just the flip phone, but a lot going on this week in Las Vegas.
Oh, my gosh. A huge week in Las Vegas. And, Ryan, you stayed out front for several laps here in this race. And with the option tire, it was a back-and-forth kind of day. But, man, let's talk about your race day. How beautiful did it feel with everyone in your rearview mirror?
I felt really good. And a strategy was a huge part in that. And honestly, when I've gone back and watched the races – or watched the race, it was, I found it enjoyable. I found it enjoyable because there was different people taking the leads at different points, and obviously selfishly, I was one of the ones that was really off sequence, and, I was having fun. I loved being out front. I loved passing cars, something that I've always enjoyed doing. So, I wish that caution didn't come out with 48 to go or whatever, because, I really felt like I was doing a good job trying to make it last. When I went back and watched it, I saw Seabell kind of kept that gap at 3.1, But really, it was just me kind of riding there and saying, hey, I need to, if I can keep him there at least until 30 or so to go, and then let him catch me a tenth a lap, taking care of that right rear, it'd be tough for him to get to me. So those were all things that were kind of going through my head.
What do you think the tires would have felt like had it gone green to the end? I mean, how much would you have had to fight that race car?
Well, for a lot of these guys that have been racing in the Cup Series, they're used to burning right fronts off for the longest time. And, for me, coming from modifieds, wide tires, so the red tire was getting a lot of right rear tire wear. That's exactly what I come from. So for me, it was like Larry Mack said, man, he's not even using brake. Yeah, I was just letting the car roll in and then just tipping into the throttle and trying to use that roll speed through the center to keep the lap time up and save that tire. So that was a huge part in it.
It was a lot of fun to watch, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it was. But look, we hear drivers and teams talk all the time about saving the tire, saving the tire, saving the tire. And I know you said I guess less time on the brakes may be something that helps with that. But how do you do that and still go out there and make lap times like you're making?
Well, that comes with experience and a lot of time that I've put in racing against other people throughout the ranks. And there's different ways to go about it. I'm going to let some of these young guys that haven't had to necessarily learn how to save tires yet figure it out on their own. So we'll keep that secret to ourselves.
I want to go back to the first time you put on the Reds, right? First time you put on the option tires. You were basically the guinea pig. I mean, you were the first car to bolt those on. You probably had no idea what to expect, I would imagine, right?
Well, I can tell you, I'm a gambler. I really enjoy doing things that other people kind of won't. And to be honest with you, looking back after practice with Derek and kind of talking about what I was feeling and what they saw with tire wear, I wasn't opposed to doing it with him. I felt confident that it was going to be okay. And boy, it was a big difference, right? I think we saw that going from 30 whatever to third. And, once I got to third and how far, I think it was Tyler Reddick and William Byron were at the time, how far ahead they were, I was like, well, you know what? There's really no point in me pushing this. I'd rather just try and manage the tire and see if I can get the stage points. But I think with the way we were driving it and how our car was driving, I probably could have pushed it and maybe got to them. But boy, I love the fact that we could do something different, and I almost sat here thinking to myself, man, what happens if we only had one of those a race? And there's going to be people that are saying, well, let me use this early. There's going to be people saying, well, let me use this later. Or, man, what happens if I have a green-white checker? Now, I understand that's pretty gimmicky, but it certainly creates for strategy.
Yeah, look, the fan in me is here for it, and that's what I enjoyed. All right, so contrast being on the red softer tires to being back on the yellow primary tires, and do you go from like the highest of highs, like, man, this car is doing everything I want it to now all of a sudden, what just happened? Everyone's flying by.
Well, that was the good thing as well, is understanding the situation you're in. All right, so I was the guy who got to pass them all. Well, guess what? I didn't have the ticket for the next show when they all put them on, and I just needed to understand that and understand that, hey, I'm going to be the guy that's in the way, and you just got to take care of it. And, it's like when you would race at a short track, I'll use Pensacola or some short tracks up north, or when we would run the north-south shootout down here, there's different points in the race where people come to take their tires. And, at that point in time, you need to just take your lumps and take care of the car, because if or when there's a caution, your chance and your time is going to come back around. So, ideally, it worked out for us because every time, well, for the most part, every time we ran those Reds, we basically used them for what everyone predicted as being a full run, 40 to 50 laps, right? Well, when you looked at some of those other guys, I think they only went 25 or 30 and really never even got a full green flag run out of them. So I felt like we got our money's worth out of them. Mm-hmm. And, my hat's off to Goodyear, because they're really doing their job. And for me as a race car driver, all I want to be able to do is put my car in certain situations to where I feel like I can maneuver it around and feel like I'm making a big difference. And, I feel the road that we're heading down right now, is one for the books, and one that, we grew up watching racing and loving what the tires are doing, and I'm a real big fan of them.
And I've got to wonder, I've never been in the driver's seat, right? So I don't know what it feels like. How would you describe what it felt like on the option tires compared to the primaries?
Man, it just
it was like a video game. You passed almost everybody in the field on that first time you put them on.
It's a huge help. It's a huge help, and your car just has a good amount of grip, and everybody else is, when you're on the yellows against everybody else, you don't feel like you have less grip, but man, when you put those reds on, it's just like all the aero effects that the cars put off. Like we talk about dirty air all the time, right? And having reds against the yellows, it was a big enough change that it overcame those aero effects of what we talk about now. I never had to go head-to-head against somebody with reds on reds, right? Kind of like Joey Logano when he drove up in stage 2 and took the lead. He had a few other people, but he got there first and was able to not abuse them when you were going through it. So I think that's a huge deal as well. But I don't necessarily want to say it was like easy mode, because it wasn't. I think it just kind of figuring out where you want to place your car when you're coming up on people and trying to pass them. That was really important, and not wasting time. Because the more time you wasted in those first 10 to 15 laps when the real advantage was, you just hurt yourself. So I knew after that first stage how important it was when we restarted 14th to trying to get to Bell, pass them, and then gap ourselves as much as I could.
All right, so I'm a big fan of talking about personality on the racetrack. Maybe it's driver reputation, however you want to describe it, but how someone races someone else, how someone races you, how you race them. So do people, when their car is running well, maybe it's someone had the red tires on last week, does their racing personality change on the track? And if so, how? How could you describe that?
Well, for me, I felt like me again, like where I could really pass. I've always felt like I'm a really good passer, especially restarting and taking advantage of certain situations. I've always felt really good about it. It just created opportunity, I guess. As far as others, I think everybody did a really good job communicating. When I say everybody, I mean spotters, the drivers, or crew chiefs, the drivers, to let them know, hey, this one's on reds or this one's not, and helping them understand the picture. Because as a driver, when you have somebody coming up on you really quick, you're not like panicking, but you're just like, man, wow, am I that slow right now? So I think that's a huge important part of everything. But one thing I've really enjoyed is going back in HBO Max's app, and you can go literally watch and listen to audio. And there were certain points throughout the race where I'm like, I wonder what this one was saying, or listening or seeing. And you can really see the whole picture. So it's that's been a nice little addition.
All right. So who did you scroll back to?
A few.
You don't want to tell us?
Oh, I don't. I don't remember.
Okay.
Oh man. All right, so have you ever thought consciously of that, though? Like, either A, someone's going to hear this, or B, now someone can go back and listen to it, so I just better not hit the button?
Typically, I try not to. But what I didn't realize, so I'll go bring it back a week to Coda. Before the race started, we were starting 28th, and Derek Finley, my crew chief, said to me, hey, if you pass a bunch, because we were talking about stage points and how it's possible to get those. Well, in stage 1, I'm like, hey, man, people pit, to get stage points at a road course, sometimes it's worth it just to bank those points, because you never know how these races are going to end. And he said, well, Ryan, I'll start in 28th. It's probably less than likely that we can get there. But if you pass a bunch of cars, I'll kiss you, and we'll think about doing it. So fast forward to Phoenix, which, by the way, we did pass a bunch of cars in stage 1. We chose to take the points in stage 2 and the playoff point. But fast forward to Phoenix, we start 33rd on the reds, and we drove up to 3rd. And when we got those stage points, my initial comment over the radio was, he said, great job, driver. And I said, well, thanks, Derek, but I don't want you to kiss me. So, that was a good time.
You make a cute couple. I think it should.
Yeah.
I don't blame you for not accepting the kiss, but I think he's pretty happy that you were able to make all of that work.
Yeah, and you know what? That plays into the whole. We ended up 15th. We were down a set of reds, right? But points-wise, I think we had a 9th place points day. So 9th overall out of everybody getting points. So that's still good. That's where we needed that boost, kind of shot in the arm. And, I hate to start talking about points, but it's 4 races in the year. And, the first Atlanta, Daytona, they can be a real kick right in your knees. So it was nice to end off on a decent day.
All right, so Mike, I'm curious because you spent so many years with MRN and ESPN, and you've listened to so many drivers over the years. Good day, good run, bad run. Just how different personalities become on the radio. I like Ryan's maybe got to hit the button sometimes, but for you, some of the crazy things that you heard or could come to mind.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot, and yes, they do all have different personalities on the radio. Some are much more patient, some are more analytical, some just kind of lose it. We can probably remember who those were at times. But Ryan, I think what stood out for me this past week, because I was able to, be in his pit box for quite a bit of the race. He was very honest with Derek Finley. I recall a conversation towards the end of the race where Derek and Ryan were talking about pitting late in the race, and they basically worked it out between themselves. I mean, it wasn't a demand by the crew chief to come down pit road for tires. Ryan and Derek were conversing throughout the course of, I believe it was during yellow flag, as to what to do, and they came to a consensus. So to me, what that told me is those two are working well together and that they are finding ways to solve problems as a unit more than just one person telling the other what to do. So that's good. That's not always the case, Brad. As you've heard, there's many drivers who've told their crew chief what they're doing and vice versa. So right now, obviously, the chemistry looks great between the two. I was joking about them being a cute couple, but in all honesty, they're gelling very quickly. It seems like from the outside.
Oh, yeah. No, Derek's been a lot of fun, man. I was just telling one of the producers for the show from RFK, Thomas, we were talking about Derek, and he asked me about there's this beef, I guess, and I'm not really going to go into it. But I knew nothing about it, and then Derek looks at me in the lounge, and this is all before Daytona qualifying, and he goes, oh, yeah, this one, that one, and he starts rapping the song, and I'm sitting here in disbelief because I'm like, you listen to rap? Like, I didn't expect that, so it was cool.
There's some unexpected rap fans in these walls. I know Mark Martin was a big rap fan at a time.
He's
and
a big Gucci Mane fan.
Many people, including myself, were very surprised to hear that when we did years ago. But it's true.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine seeing Mark Martin in the weight room and doing everything that he was doing. Like Ryan said, lip syncing or just rapping away to Gucci Mane. But the relationship with you and Derek, I mean, it does sound like in a lot of the conversations we've had that there really is a good mutual admiration for what you two guys are doing. And, I mean, look, you're the newest guy behind the wheel in the driver's seat, but this is also a third team, a big addition. Do you feel like even just 4 races into the season that things are there, that the personalities are gelling, or are you 80% there? What do you think?
No, I mean, it's a constant process and something that I've really enjoyed being a part of because, man, it really, a lot of teams will all talk about being, one team, with 3 race cars or 4 race cars or however many at different organizations, but it's so tough to really keep that, and because we're all racing against each other. But, man, I really have enjoyed my time here and Brad, as a teammate, and obviously Chris is a teammate and friends. And, Brad's been a huge help, very open and somebody that's continuing to push me and something that I've enjoyed. And, it's just been it's been really nice. So, and then outside of that, from a team standpoint, I think the chemistry from not only myself, but within the team, everybody's working together. And I think that's a huge part and piece that all of us talk about. A lot of race car drivers, we talk about it, but actually establishing that and having that is not easy. So, I'm really excited to get rolling into the season because it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're only 4 races in and many to go. but I feel like every week we're learning something about each other and how we can continue to be better. And, I'm not perfect. I'm no saint. I think there's been a lot of experiences that I've had in the past that have helped me try to be better, because, I've always had the best of intentions when it comes to racing, because, I understand it's a team sport and communication's a huge part of it. So, I've been lucky enough to have those experiences and hopefully be better from them.
I'm curious. You led laps this past week. You led laps in COTA. I think it may have been the duels. I don't think it was the 500, but I think it was the duels you led. At some point in Daytona, I think you led a lap. So you've led laps in quite a few of the early races here. What's that done for you, confidence-wise?
I didn't really think about that. But you're right, because we led in the duels, we led in the 500, and we led at COTA when people pulled off, and we got that stage win.
And this past week.
And then this past weekend. It feels normal. It feels
normal.
It feels normal, right? So I guess it felt good. It relights that fire. It was like when we bolted on those reds and you're passing, it's like, well, shit, this feels really good. I like this. I don't know if we could swear, so I'm sorry, but it just, man, racing, everything I've raced in, I've always been super aggressive at passing. Restarts, everything. And then, there's time where you don't necessarily feel like you can't, but you're just like, what's stopping me? So yeah, that felt good.
You said something earlier while we were having this conversation about leading laps this past week. You said, I felt like myself again.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at right here? I mean,
it
felt normal is what you said.
Yeah, I feel, it's the same comments. I don't know if you guys heard him, but Josh Berry said the same thing. Us as racers, we were teammates last year, and there was times where he actually looked at me in the driver's meeting, because we didn't qualify very well, and that's usually what happened last year. But then, towards the later half of the season, we legitimately started running really well. Like, we would pass a lot of cars in the first stage and the second stage, and I used to say in our debriefs, and this was the truth, was like, man, I don't know what to tell you guys. I feel good. I don't have the speed, but I'm telling you, tomorrow when they drop the green, I'm going to go forward. So he looked at me in the driver's meeting at Phoenix, and he goes, so you feel good? It was funny. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it's racing can be such a humbling sport. And, understanding there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, and use the bad times to help you get back to those good times. So I've had a really, really interesting NASCAR, national career, but I'm really excited about this year, everything that RFK has to offer. We have great partners with Consumer Cellular this weekend, and Kroger, Fifth Third Bank, Castrol, BuildSubmarines.com. The list goes on and on. And I'm just lucky that the situation worked out and that I'm able to be in here and continue to get back to feeling like I always felt.
Yeah, that is great. And look, it looked great seeing the Solomon Plumbing Ford
and
Mustang.
Solomon Plumbing. Yep, that's right.
This weekend at Phoenix Raceway. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and come back. We've got a lot more to talk about. Phoenix, definitely we're going to look ahead to Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend and have a whole lot of fun. Brad Gilly, Mike Massaro, Ryan Preece. This is Backstretch Banter with RFK here on Sirius XM. Welcome back to Backstretch Banter. Brad Gilly sitting in for Chris Childers this week. We have Mike Massaro and, of course, the driver of the number 60 Consumer Cellular Ford Mustang Dark Horse this weekend, Mr. Ryan Preece, as we head to Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And Ryan, so far this year, well, I'm going to say 5 races because I'm going to count Bowman Gray. That was unique in and of itself. You have the Daytona 500, which is almost its own mini season. You had Atlanta, which is somewhat of a speedway race. You had a road course at COTA. You had an option tire at Phoenix Raceway. It seems like everything so far this year has been some type of wild card, but that's about to change.
Yeah, that's funny that you actually said all that. You're right. I didn't even think about it. I mean, whenever I thought about the beginning of the season, I thought about Daytona, Atlanta, and how good of a race you could be having, and it could end with 2 to go with you ending up 32nd or whatever it is. So it's such a challenge at the beginning of the season. Like, it can either put you up on the mountain really, really quick and make you feel like you're in a good spot and buy you some weeks, I guess, maybe 8 to 10 weeks before the car's performance or whatever could catch up, or, you could be in a hole where you're digging yourself out. And it's such a challenge. I mean, I've spent two of 5 years negative in points because of infractions, going into week 3. So that's tough. But yeah, no, it's a challenge for sure. And I'm glad we were able to have a good points day on Sunday and move on into Vegas and kind of start hitting our stride.
So mentally, how do you get yourself ready to, go from this many different tracks in a row? I mean, as many tracks that we have that are like Las Vegas, this is the first one you're going to this year, and you're coming off of other tracks that are relatively unique. So that kind of in itself makes this track unique. So from a mindset standpoint, how do you shift gears?
Well, for us now, this is the speedway stuff. Like, this is we're going to see where we stack up down for, and all that speed-wise on mile and a half, because typically that's going to kind of give you an idea of how you're going to be at Kansas and Michigan and, some of these racetracks in the summer months, and that's important because it could either make you, feel really good about heading to, a place like Vegas or Kansas and so forth, or you could kind of be miserable going to some of them and just saying like, well, I just got to go get a top 20 or a top 15 here. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, like, from in the past, those were not the tracks that I typically looked forward to. But now I'm really looking forward to them because I think you guys saw RFK did a phenomenal job last year, and Chris and Brad were really fast. So really, I am excited to go to Vegas.
All right, so I'm curious because this time last year, Ryan, one of the things we were talking about was the Mustang Dark Horse, a little bit of a new body, and you got to experience that over at SHR and maybe some early season struggles. But you talked earlier about how you finished really strong. I mean, Homestead, where we go next weekend, you had a 10th place finish. You were 16th at Kansas, 11th at Michigan, 12th at Darlington. When it comes to, some of these higher speed racetracks, it seemed like in the second half of the year, you guys picked that up a lot. Now you're with a new team. Do you think that can continue on into this weekend?
Well, at the very least, it gave me a different style to look for, because what we ended up doing and how we got there and how the car drove was definitely completely different than what we were experiencing before. And, it just was a lot more maneuverable and drivable. And, that just allowed me to put the car wherever we needed to put it and make speed out of it. So that was nice, and it's something to look for. I think leaning on Brad and leaning on Chris is certainly going to be pretty important when we go to Vegas. I mean, you look at last year, Chris, I think in the first race, or maybe it was the second one, but I think he finished 7th and got stage points in both. So the speed is clearly there, and they have a really good notebook. And when you've looked at it, both Chris and Brad are typically really close on speed, and I love the process of everything they have here. So I'm excited about it. And like I said, in the past, before the end of the season, we did struggle some. So, I mean, there's certainly going to be a lot of note taking going on. But when it comes race time, I promise you, I'll be ready.
What's the one thing you want to find out from Brad or Chris going into this race?
Well, I think one of the things that I look forward to is just talking with Chris and Brad, and hey, this is what I'm feeling here. Are you feeling this? And if you are, what is something that helped you if you tried to fix it? So just having those conversations is certainly something that I'm looking forward to, because as much as it's different. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, is this a good indicator that where you and we talk about where you stack up? I think a lot of people refer to that with the rest of the field. But right now, if you look at the point standings, RFK is all over the map. You got Chris, who's 10th. You climbed up a bunch of spots. You're at 24th. Brad has just struggled. He's sitting at 33rd. But we talked about all of those variations that we've had throughout the year. But now if we go to a couple of normal tracks, if you will, for lack of a better term, from Vegas to Homestead, Martinsville, Now you can sort of have conversations where there's not an option tire, there's not that, and truly understand where you are within RFK before you understand where you are within the field. Is that fair?
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate, because you could, if you didn't watch any of these races and know where Brad has been running, I mean, frick, at Daytona, he was one of the fastest cars, right, in stage 2 or stage 1, and got stage points, finished second, and same thing at Atlanta. He's driving forward, and then the same thing at Phoenix. He was fast. They just hadn't used the reds yet, and just sometimes there's things that are out of your control, and it just puts you in a hole. Like those guys. You take away, I was running, I think, 10th or whatever it was when I got wrecked at Daytona. And at COTA, we had something go amiss with the fuel situation to where I had to pit, where we were going to end up probably around 14th or whatever. And even before that caution come out, we were going to end up 11th. And all three of us should be up there in points. It's just, I think, I'm going to speak for Brad and I'm looking forward to Vegas. I'm looking forward to Homestead, Martinsville, Bristol, and so on, to really build these points back up. And hopefully when we go to Talladega, the three of us can work really hard together to get, a lot of stage points and stay out of the chaos at the end and continue to build on that.
I can add to the situation with Brad Keselowski. I was with him most of the weekend in Phoenix. I was with him when the race ultimately ended for him. He had been sitting in the car, window net up. Team was working on the car, trying to make repairs. They had worked on it for quite a while before they decided that it just wasn't going to happen that day. Brad climbed out of the car, and before anybody could scurry away, go back to the transporter or anything like that, he made sure he got all of their attention. He called all of the road crew and the over-the-wall guys into a huddle, like a football huddle, if you will, in the garage around the car, and he gave them a motivational pep talk, if you will. He was showing his leadership skills. He wanted to make sure that they understood that he truly believes that better days are ahead, and he didn't want anybody to hang their heads. So to me, I was impressed by that, and it showed me that the mantra that he unveiled a couple of years ago, that the six never quits. I think he was trying to reinstill that and making sure they understood that there's a long season ahead, lots of racing still to go, and what's happened so far in the season is behind them, and that they need to look to the next race, Las Vegas, where Brad historically has been very good. So reason to be hopeful for the six team, and certainly Brad is not hanging his head yet.
That's really cool. I'm a huge fan of that. We were talking earlier about, hey, look, sometimes people can get animated on the radio, and we've all seen it. Mike, I know you've seen it. You hear a driver just start to tear down a team, and it doesn't do anything. But then you see another driver, one that does typically run well or whatever it might be, and you start to hear about everything they say is productive. Mm-hmm. It's about making the car go faster. And truthfully, it's in those moments where you probably need, hey, good day, we're going to be okay, than when you win. Everyone knows you did well when you win, right, Ryan? But when but you see the promise in front of you, sometimes you got to remind each other and, lift each other up instead of tearing each other down.
I do not know any, Tom Brady. I'm a Connecticut guy, right? And I was on the not northern side, but I was central. I was in Hartford. And the thing about Connecticut is, if you were in that southwest-ish or west part of Connecticut, you were kind of like a Giants or a Jets fan. And but if you were in that Hartford or anything east, you were a Patriots fan. And so the thing, I guess what I'm getting at here is the perception and everything you hear about Tom Brady and how he was as a leader. I'm going to use that as an example of somebody, if you want those to work hard around you to get to that goal of winning, that's what you have to do. I mean, beating people and tearing them down is not going to get you anywhere.
No. I love the Tom Brady comparison because I'm a Patriot fan too and come from the same neck of the woods as Ryan. So Brad knows what leaders are. And certainly he is emulating that and leading by example. So it's good to see. And I expect nothing less, moving forward from all the teams.
That's really cool. I'll tell you what, when we come back, look, it's real easy to talk about the nuts and bolts of what we do and performance and results and things like that. But it's also fun to sort of get to know people and talk about a little background. I was telling you guys earlier, I've known Chris since he was like 10 years old. You know,
We want to hear those stories.
good stories, actually. I'm curious about the 10-year-old Chris to the, what now, 30-year-old Chris or however old he is now. But let's do that. Let's just talk a little bit about RFK and some of the things that we don't typically get to see when we come back here on Backstretch Banter. Welcome back to Backstretch Banter here on Sirius XM. Brad Gilly along with Mike Massaro and Ryan Preece, the driver of the number 60 Consumer Cellular Ford Mustang this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And of course, Ryan, the newest addition to RFK Racing. You're back with the teammate that you had before, Ryan, when Chris Buescher. Someone with whom I'm very familiar, but is it did you ever distance from each other when you're not teammates? I guess is maybe the best way I could put that.
I think we were always kind of talking to each other. Of all the people that I would seek out and talk to, it'd probably be Chris. One thing, when I moved to North Carolina, my wife had a pet bird that she had since she was, young. And then Heather and Emma met. And then it was just like these animals kept flowing into our house. And now I think we have like 16 total animals between cats, dogs, birds, ducks, horses, everything. I'm not looking forward to that part again because those two are two peas in a pod. They will just, if they could adopt every animal in the world, they would. And I wish I had enough room for them, but I don't. So, yeah, those two have been just on it again.
What's the strangest animal that has been discussed as possibly being part of the herd?
I don't think any strange animal, but we just got a guinea pig.
They're not talking about bringing in a mini buffalo or anything like that? No?
Honestly, the one animal I would get, though, is a it's probably like something like that. I don't know, a cow or something. But, yeah, no, Chris has been a lot of fun. Him and I, we're kind of the same when it comes to trucks or cars. We start talking about parts and giving each other ideas of what we need to do to each other's project car that'll never see the light of day probably for 2 or 3 years. But that's it's always fun, being around him and having those conversations.
All right, so Chris, he and his father and his cousin James and James' father Dean, they started racing Legends cars with us, actually Bandoleros for them because they were young, at Texas Motor Speedway. And I was running that program back in the early 2000s. Now, Chris, we see him now like he's a big guy. He's maybe not one you want to be on the wrong end of the conversation with. He was just a skinny little blonde-headed kid, still looks the same way he does now, except without the red beard. But he was always so quiet. And he came from a motocross background before they started racing Bandolero cars, but he would hop on my mountain bike in the pits. And, here's this little bitty kid, because he was little, little skinny kid. Here's this little bitty kid riding around on my huge mountain bike, doing wheelies and all of that, but never said much at all. So the Chris you're around today, Ryan, what is his personality like away from the track?
Nah, he's a talker. He's funny. I mean, you start talking about UTVs or off-roading or stuff of that nature, he really opens up and loves it. So, him and I are very similar, very different, very similar, and I think our personalities just really get along. So, he keeps trying to tell me I need to go off-roading. And this is the other thing most people don't know is like he's crazy when it comes to side-by-sides and off-roading. Like he'll take his side-by-side across his pond. That's not like I'll do some crazy things, but I'm not gonna do that with him. Like,
I haven't seen your contract yet, but I don't want you to do anything that might put you on the sidelines for any period of time.
Yeah. So no, but it's some fun, man. Honestly, he's a riot, and it's been a good time.
I love that.
Brad, help me out with this. I mean, we're of a similar age group and have a similar frame of reference, but for whatever reason, Chris reminds me of Terry Labonte. I don't know if it's the Texas thing or what, but Terry was very laid back, soft-spoken. Chris has a lot of that. I mean, I see a lot of that.
I like that. I honestly, I like that reference because he doesn't have to say much. He'll let his talking happen in the race car. And truthfully, his parents, his father, Jim, was always, and I don't want to say one of the nicest guys. He's like a fun guy. His family, his background, they're home builders. They built, you look flying to DFW, you see a lot of the rooftops here. That came from his family's business, essentially. And Jim, his father, always had a little bit longer hair than what normal people would and all of that, but was just the coolest guy to be around. And I think having that, they were very grounded, at least everything that I saw. And I think that made a huge difference with Chris. But like I said, when he was a kid, it didn't seem like he ever said much. He didn't talk much. He would just go out there and race and kind of sit there and you'd talk to him and he'd smile, get a trophy and all of that. But I think a Labonte reference is perfect in so many ways because you have the whole Texas connection and everything.
That's what it reminds me of. Thank you for validating that, by the way.
Yeah, that's great. But how does that mix in with everything too, Ryan? Because Brad is a very serious guy, and sometimes one thing I admire about Brad, sometimes he could step to the left of something and look at it a different way. Sometimes he could step all the way around it and look at it at a different way as well. So how does that gel with all three of you?
I feel like that has been something that I've already noticed a lot about Brad, and really helped me at don't be so narrow-minded. Because him with perspective and looking at it in different ways it's beneficial. And I think that's, also what keeps you from falling behind. I just honestly, I think all our personalities complement each other, and hopefully we'll continue to build the company and this organization to getting to where we all want to be. We all want to be winning races and doing all that. So, Brad's been a huge part in leading this, and especially a lot of the conversations that we have are very productive, and I'm extremely happy to be a part of it. And Brad, that's something I remember we were walking down the stairs after a meeting, and he was telling me just kind of as a kid when he went to his father's races and the things that he liked to focus on, and I was like, that's completely different for me, but that's beneficial. It's a completely different side of it. So it was nice. It's been really nice to get to know him.
Yeah,
that is really...
Brad is, he thinks through everything, right? He thinks through every aspect of everything. He's very analytical. That's the way I've always saw him.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, when we come back, we got a big weekend coming up back out west, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, which there is so much more to Las Vegas Motor Speedway than that 1.5 mile ribbon of asphalt as well. We'll talk about that and much more when Backstretch Banter returns. Welcome back to Backstretch Banter here on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio as we take a weekly look at RFK Racing. Brad Gilley sitting in for Chris Childers. We have Mike Massaro. We have Ryan Preece, driver of the number 60, and we get to head out west to, well, anytime a town has like multiple nicknames, the Silver City, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. A good time's going to be had, whether you're at the racetrack or away from the racetrack. But Ryan, away from the racetrack, do you head into town and have some fun?
Yeah. No, I like to play roulette. I'm a bit much like pitch strategies with Derek. I like to gamble a little bit. I like roulette. My numbers are usually 6, 10, 13, 16, 18, 20, and 24. And 31. I play those.
I thought it was just supposed to be 6, 17, 60.
Yeah, well, there's no 60, but yeah.
All right,
yeah.
See, that tells you how much I know about roulette.
All right, so one year I had a strategy. We were talking about this during the break. Doug Rice and I used to go to the El Cortez in downtown. Back then they had quarter roulette. So you could go play for like $40 and either spend it or not spend it. You might win it back. But for 4 hours you were entertained. And there was one time I was very entertained because we were having an extra good time. And my strategy is what everyone kept calling it. I was carpet bombing the roulette table.
Nice.
And I'm pretty sure I was guaranteed to win on every spin. Now, whether I actually won above what I had or I had something on everything, and it was fun. I could do that with quarters. There's no way I could do that with dollars or fives or what other people do on the roulette wheel.
Yeah, it's really easy to get caught up in it, I guess, huh? There's definitely times, and I don't know how many listeners like to play roulette, but there is times where if I start seeing green hit around, like if there's 4 roulette tables and I see 2 of them hit, I start playing those numbers on each side of the green as well as the green, because I'm like, oh, I can just feel it. They're trying to take everyone's money. They aren't taking mine.
I wish I had a strategy that worked. When I was younger, I played blackjack a little bit. Thought that I knew what I was doing. But I've learned over the years that I work way too hard for my money to give it to the folks who build those palaces out there on Las Vegas Boulevard. So I'll be happy to walk around and watch all of you folks wager as you will, but I'm just an observer. I may go to the rodeo, though. I heard the rodeo's out there.
I'm sure they do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're at the South Point, like when they do bull riding and things like that, it is awesome. And again, it gets you away from it. All right, so I'm curious. So in the South Point, there is mechanical roulette to where you don't have to interact with people. You're not reaching over people. You're sitting at your own screen, but it's a real roulette wheel. For me, I won't play blackjack. I don't know why. There's something intimidating about sitting around a bunch of people at a table. I know for a fact that whatever I put out there is not coming back.
Well, I've gotten yelled at by other people at the blackjack table for taking a card when they thought it should have been theirs. So, yeah, I get it.
See, you hear everybody talk about, quote unquote, playing by the book. Well, I feel like sometimes it's nice to shake things up if you're going to do it every once in a while to kind of change the deck. But it's funny that you say that. You like to play video blackjack, so you're not up against the table. If I was going to play a video game, it would be video craps. And the reason being is you feel like you are, like when you're at the craps table with like everybody reaching over everybody and there's so much going on, I feel like when I go to the video craps, I can just literally focus in and be like, okay, I'm going to take my time here. I'm going to play this, this, and this, or I'm going to pull my bet off and not feel like I got to like scream at somebody, be like, hey, shut it off. So, that would be mine.
I'm a hard no on anything that is operated by a computer. Like, if it's programmed to take my money, I want nothing to do with that. So...
Yeah,
I don't blame you. All right, so I am curious, Ryan. Now, for all of us, we can't go out there and wager on NASCAR, on this sport. Baseball, football, whatever, depending on what maybe the rules of RFK are. But do you ever look at your odds or some of the other odds and think, boy, what are they thinking with that?
Nope. Nope. Because to be honest with you, I don't want to know. I mean, I've never. I'll never forget this one though, because I've sports betted, football a little bit, during an NFL season, but I will never, go back. I remember it was 2018 or 2017, Iowa. I guess my odds were terrible when I was in that Gibbs car, and somebody put like a $50 bet on me to win, and they said they won a bunch of money. It was crazy. But yeah, no, I'm not a big sports bettor.
I like that. All right, so here's another funny story. So New England Patriots, you guys are both fans.
Yes.
I have a big fan. And would go every year, and before the season started, would bet on the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. Now, for a lot of years, that was a good thing. And I can't remember what years they won. So I'm just going to pick one. Let's just say it was the 2018 Super Bowl, right? So the 2018 Super Bowl is the one played in 2018, not the 2017 season.
I got you.
He brought the wrong winning ticket. He goes, this was from the 17th season. I go, yeah, but it was the 2008. He had thrown away the winning ticket. He thought he had the good one.
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm sad now. I'm very sad for them. So.
Well, he got this. At least enjoy winning until he didn't.
Yeah. But you really can't enjoy it until you cash that check. So
that's very true.
Yeah.
That's true. Gambling on the racetrack, Ryan. What do you think? How can you do that this weekend?
Well, I think we all kind of have our own approach of what we'd like the weekend to go like. For me, see how practice goes. I have a feeling that we're going to be really good and comfortable, but then, qualifying's a huge piece of this. It can really help you in stage one. So I haven't seen the qualifying metric yet. I talk about that all the time whenever I come on the show every Monday. And, I feel like we have a good or a decent enough draw, at least late in Group A, if not early in Group B, which would be fine. and hopefully start off the weekend right. Execute pit road. Have a good car all day, and keep track position. And hopefully we can be having a really good conversation on Monday.
I think we'd all like that. Yes.
Yeah. Makes the plane ride from Vegas home a little bit better.
It's a long plane ride, but if you've got the trophy with you,
yeah,
makes it a lot easier.
All right, people have won or lost on 2 to 4 tire calls at the end of this one. What do you want? Do you want track position or do you want fresh tires? Let's say you're going to restart with 10 to go.
If you can tell me that if I take 2, I'm starting on the front row, give me the front row. Yeah, so I'd take 2. I'm of the gambler essence. We're in Vegas, so I'm all for it. Whatever it takes, clean air.
Nice. Well, I know some folks are going to get to see on Sunday with Consumer Cellular. I would encourage people to come out to the fan zone and check out times for all of that and everything. But we wish you the best of luck. And Mike, it's awesome to share a microphone with you. Ryan, it's a real pleasure to be able to be a part of this show as well. So a lot of fun.
Appreciate it.
Agreed. Good to see you, Brad.
Nice to see you, Brad. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in to Backstretch Banter.